Welcome to the WP SEO Show, brought to you by SEO Hive, your proactive white label SEO partner. The WP SEO Show is all about talking WordPress and SEO, from optimizations, structures, setups, and plugins. We explore how to make your WordPress website perform better in the search engines. Here are your hosts, Pete Everett and Jeff Patch.
Hello and welcome to this episode of the WP SEO Show. Today, this is your co-host Pete, by the way. I am not only joined by my other co-host, Mr. Jeff Patch, all the way from California, which I say every episode. But we are joined by an esteemed guest who is another British accent on the show, but is from French France, Mr. Jason Barnard. Welcome to the show, Jason and Jeff.
Hi, well, thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here from the south of France.
There you go. You see, now we're all just jealous, thinking of the Med and the vineyards and the baguettes and the croissant. Oh, don't get me started. I love France. Anyway, Jason, before we we do have a few things sort of mapped out that we're going to talk about today, or sort of noted out that we're going to talk about today. But before we get into all of that, do you just want to introduce yourself and give a little overview of who you are, what you do? We've kind of covered where you come from and all that sort of jazz.
Right. Oh, well, thank you very much. Oh, I'll start with the song. A quick hello and we're good to go. Welcome to your show, Jeff and Pete.
New jingle. All right. We got that other one that you used, I think AI for, Pete. That's gone. We're using this now. That was great.
Right. Well, I'm actually a musician like you guys. I was a professional musician for years in the 1990s in France, which is why I'm here in France, in a punk folk group, playing in the alternative rock scene in France for 10 years. And it was really cool.
I cannot wait to find recordings of this. This sounds awesome already.
Oh, we've got loads online.
I'm being serious. This sounds awesome. I didn't know this.
I'll send you
already.
Some.
Please.
We a TV station recorded us once, and those are really good recordings, and we were very well behaved, so it looks kind of like we're quite a professional band. There are a lot out there. I still play music today. There's a recording from a couple of weeks ago, playing at the Jazz Cafe opposite my house, literally opposite. There's a jazz. It's called the Jazz Corner Cafe, where they have jazz groups on, and they had me and my friend playing swing jazz.
Wow,
cool!
That is cool.
So cool. So I come from a music background like you, and I have
Awesome.
The ukulele, which is much less impressive than the guitars that you guys have. But I play the double bass, and the double bass is huge.
Oh man, now that really is cool. That really is cool.
I'm ready to go to France. Hang out with Jason
for my birthday last year. So when I learned to play the drums, we're off piste already here. When I learned to play the drums, I used to play in a jazz band as part of school, and then we kind of took it on when we all left to university. We all sort of went our different ways, and it kind of broke down a little bit. But I used to sit between the trumpeters and the saxophonists at the back, and it was such a cool place to sit. And I'd always wanted to learn a brass instrument, so for my birthday last year, my wife bought me a trumpet, and I'm still trying to get the hang of it. But yeah, I love that kind of music and that vibe that you got off it. And just sitting at the back of this jazz band was so cool, such a cool place to be. And playing music with a group of people, even if it's just one other person, the two of you, that camaraderie you get, and you just can't replace it.
No, it's super delightful. I mean, I've played music my whole adult life. Ironically, I was the only member of my family who didn't learn music at school, and I'm the one who became a musician. So kind of the great irony is lovely. If you don't bully your kids too much, maybe they'll become professional musicians. Maybe they won't. Who knows? But with the question initially was, who am I and what do I do? I'm Jason Barnard. I have a company called CaliCube. You can see the logo behind me. And we specialize in managing brand in search and assistive engines. So Google Search, ChatGPT, Siri, Alexa. We help corporations, but particularly CEOs and founders of corporations, to control how these machines understand and represent them. And that is key to the future of AI and the world that these AI assistive engines, the ChatGPTs, the Google Geminis, the Alexas, the Siris, the Perplexities, the Claudes of this world, they're going to create a new world, and you need to control how your brand, personal brand or corporate brand, is perceived and represented. It's going to be the key and the foundation to digital marketing, SEO, and probably your human existence online.
Scary to think about. Scary to think about in a few ways there.
And that is the end of this week's show.
I'm not scared. Sorry.
Sorry, go for it, Jason.
No. It is scary. And I've been sitting in this for ages. And I've been, given that I've figured out how to control how these machines understand you and therefore represent you, means that I'm not scared. And that's the thing we offer to our clients that makes sense, is we can protect you. We can help you. And we can protect you from the danger of misunderstanding, misrepresentation, and we can present to you on a platter, a silver platter, the opportunities that these machines obviously represent.
I imagine it's going to happen anyway, right? They're going to, I don't know what the terms are, right? They're going to index you, or they're going to label you, however you want to describe it. I'd actually love to kind of learn some better terms for that, because it feels a little off, but I think we're on the same page here. But so if you do it, if you help it, you do it right the first time, you're kind of cutting to the chase. You're getting past maybe some of the muddy waters that are going to come when it thinks, it's trying to analyze you and figure things out. And I don't know, we keep talking on this show a lot about AI and the weird, things we learn or see from it. And like, I followed, some technical tutorials, and they have you bounce around because they don't logically flow. So I can only imagine what it's going to start saying about me when it digs down deep in the internet. And I don't know if it's going to mix up another Jeff Patch, or, make up something about my past, but I can only imagine the horror stories that are going to come from, hey, ChatGPT, tell us about this employee that's, applying for our job. Oh, okay. Exactly. Well, he did this. And
well, no, 100%. And that is the thing, is how they're trying to understand everybody. So whether you like it or not, 24/7, they are trying to understand you, whether you like it or not. So you can't hide your head in the sand and hope it doesn't happen. They will try to understand you. They'll probably get it wrong. And the problem, one of the huge problems we're now discovering, is a little bit of understanding is worse than no understanding at all. So either you have to have no digital footprint at all, in which case they can never understand you and you've got no problem. If they understand a bit and they get confident about it, they'll just make it all up. And an example is my ex-wife, who was in a cartoon with me. So after the music career, I then did a children's entertainment cartoon career. Wow. And I educated Google, because it's like a child. It wants to learn. It wants to understand. So does Siri. So does Alexa. So does Bing. So does ChatGPT. They want to understand. So you feed them information. And I got them to understand that she was a voice actress. And then I stopped, because, it was an experiment and she was happy with it. So I'm not experimenting on my wife or my ex-wife in any particularly nasty way. But I didn't really think, okay, that is potentially a problem, because then I asked ChatGPT, tell me about Veronique Barnard's career. And it said, she's Swiss-Canadian, started a music career in 1974 with an album called Hello, then starred in a film with Yves Saint Laurent called Ma Vie est Belle in 1968. And it went through this entire story that's completely made up. And the problem was that if it wasn't confident about that initial piece of information, she's a voice actress in a cartoon, it would have just said, I don't know. But because it had such confidence in that foundational piece of information, it just thought, I'll make it up. And that was hugely shocking for me.
Yeah.
I thought what you were saying there was the truth, and then you're going to tell us what was not right. I'm like, it really went off on you.
She was in one cartoon with me once, but she's a graphic designer, lives in the south of France, and hangs out at the local jazz cafe.
Is she Swiss-Canadian?
No.
Brilliant.
Oh, literally none of what it said was true.
So,
it got overexcited. ChatGPT obviously thought, I understand this one. And then it went off on its large language model and just started predicting and making things up. And we have another client who has a name that's vaguely similar to a dead mineralogist. And so it mixes up half of his life as the president of a major corporation in America and half of what it understands of this dead mineralogist. So we're sorting that out for him, of course.
So what I think maybe where I mean, what you said's just kind of my head's whirring at the minute. Trying to get a coherent sentence out might be a challenge. But I think
Talk about drums.
Well, yeah, we can talk about drums if you want. If we go back to the start of this, then the whole concept of it seems both logical and like completely like you're trying to control something, like nailing jelly to a wall, both at the same time. And in the little chat we had beforehand, you mentioned this term modern SEO. And that kind of strung a bit of a chord with me, not only because SEO is kind of what we do, but because actually the way that these technologies have come out, a lot of us, rightly or wrongly, have kind of assumed that they're going to learn in the same way that the search engines index you, algorithms, crawling, links, etc., authority, all of that kind of stuff. But I'm guessing that's not actually how it works. So do you want to just unpack that term that I said you mentioned earlier, modern SEO, and kind of how that differs from my understanding or what the listener's understanding of SEO might be, and how that impacts on what you've been talking about?
Oh, which is a really lovely question. I've been doing this for 12 years. And initially I was saying Google's your business card. You need to control the Google search result for your name. I then started to do that for myself, for my company, for my ex-wife, for the cartoon characters, for my group, and figuring out how do you control Google's representation of you when somebody searches your name.
Mm-hmm.
Turns out that that's actually just entity management, entity optimization, and that's what modern SEO is all about. Now, I got totally obsessed by this idea you have to control that search result for your name, to the extent which I kind of thought, ooh, everybody should be doing this, and not everybody needs to do it, which is fine. But what it turns out is that with the Google leak from last May, I think it was, I looked through the documentation, and a lot of what we've been doing is actually now foundational to the algorithms. And the algorithms still contain what I consider to be traditional SEO, which is look at the website and the content and optimize it. And that still needs to be done. It needs links to show that it's popular. It needs the content to be great and helpful. It needs the site to be fast so the user gets a great experience. It needs all of that stuff. So all of that stays, but Google isn't satisfied with understanding the web page and the website anymore. It wants to understand which company or which person has published that content. Who is standing behind it? Who is the guarantor of that content? Because if it can understand that, it can see, is that person or company credible? When we talk about EEAT, are they expert, experienced, authoritative, and trustworthy? Then it wants to understand who wrote the content, who created the content, who is the content creator, the person. If it can understand that, then it can say, well, this person is expert, experienced, authoritative, and trustworthy, therefore this content is valuable and helpful. So you now have three tiers: the traditional level, which is website, web page optimization, web publisher, the content publisher optimization, and the author content creator optimization. So I just had two levels.
That we have a good number of conversations with people about EEAT. This isn't the first time it's been mentioned on the show, and really? It's not the first time it's been mentioned.
That's on the show. That was my idea of being funny.
It's also not the second, third, or fourth time either.
But one of the things that we get asked about quite a lot. I did a live stream in a group last week, and it came up there was EEAT essentially is there's no part of the algorithm which is actually E, E, A, or T. The EEAT is like a methodology. It's an example. It's a standard to go by, but it's not actually part of the algorithm. And that's that often confuses people a little bit, as to say, well, why can't we just actually get on with doing real SEO rather than sort of playing to this ideal that's put forward by Google? I mean, by Google themselves, literally. Yeah. So it's interesting that you mentioned that. But of all of that, then, how much of that then feeds over, or how much of that is similar to the training of things like AIs and voice activated search and all of that kind of stuff?
Well, it's actually all the same, which is good news for me. In the we work at Kalicube on what we call the Kalicube process: understandability, credibility, deliverability. Understandability: does the machine understand who you are, what you do, and who you serve? Credibility: does it believe you're a credible solution for the subset of its users who are your audience? Deliverability: does it have the content from you that it can then deliver to its audience to bring them towards you and to inform them about you and give them the information that you want to share with them and essentially bring them down the funnel to you? So we focus on saying, well, let's make sure it understands you. If it can understand you as an author and a content creator or a publisher, then it can apply whatever credibility signals EEAT contains.
Mm-hmm.
If it understands that you're a credible solution, it will introduce you to the conversation. It will present you more often. If you have the content, the deliverability for it to do so when somebody's asking a question for which you have a relevant answer. So it really is that simple. And if you look at EEAT, there's been a lot of kind of debate. It's a fluffy term, but then the algorithms are opaque. We don't know what goes on inside them. Google engineers don't know what goes on inside them. They just set the guardrails and the rules and hope for the best, fingers crossed. The key there is that we can prove that Google understands who the author of a piece of content is. We can prove that Google understands who the publisher of that content is. Google is using that to judge the quality of the content. And right now, the effect on the content in terms of traditional SEO ranking is minimal at best, and certainly unmeasurable. We're now in a fluffy world of SEO where things become increasingly difficult to measure. And at Kalicube, we've actually have a measurement of to what extent Google has understood who the author and the publisher are. Now, to what extent that actually boosts your SEO is another question. And it's still early days. It's only been a year and a half that this has actually been the case.
So essentially, has this been a consequence that you saw basically of the major helpful content updates that rolled out throughout the second half of 2023? Because that was a different approach to the Google updates that they hadn't done in certainly a long time. I'm not going to say never, but certainly in a long time, that they actually had. Well, there was 4 in 8 weeks, which was great. It would screw your data up, and just as things were starting to stabilize, they'd release the next phase, and it screw your data up again. And round the circle went. So essentially, has it been a consequence of that?
Yeah, what happened is, we've been tracking Google's knowledge graph. And Google's knowledge graph, for people who don't know what it is basically an encyclopedia that machines can use in real time to understand the world. A huge Wikipedia. And to give you an idea of the scale, Wikipedia has 6 million articles, i.e. 6 million things that it describes or gives you information about as an encyclopedia. Google's Knowledge Vault, which we call the Knowledge Vault because that's where the solid heart of the information is, has 54 billion entities, articles, and at least 5,000 billion attributes, relationships, pieces of information about those 54 billion entities. So the scale is completely off the charts. Wikipedia is no longer important in terms of being understood by Google, whereas it used to be. And you can see why when you say, well, Google can't rely on Wikipedia when it's that small. And I'm saying 6 million is small. 54 billion is a good size, but 54 billion is still small when you consider that Google wants to understand the entire world and the history of the world.
Yeah.
So, we're just going, ooh, wow, this is nuts. And I'll give you an exclusive piece of information.
Come on.
I was trying to calculate how many people there are in Google's knowledge graph.
Right.
And I came up with a number. It was this guesstimation. And it was in the billions. And I was sitting there thinking, well, that's weird. There's only 8 billion people in the world. How can we possibly have a number of 4 to 6 billion? I can't remember quite what the number was. Then we did some research. In Wikidata, 70% of the people in Wikidata are dead.
Yeah.
So it's history.
It's history.
And that blew my mind. It doesn't actually help anybody, but you just go, ooh, isn't that cool? And so that's going to change over time, is the ratio of people from history who are now deceased to the people who are now alive is going to change, and it's going to change fast. And a year ago, to come back to your initial question, Google tripled the number of people in the knowledge graph with living people.
Okay.
which gives us an idea of kind of quite where it's gone with that. And it went hugely aimed at understanding who people are and aimed specifically at writers, authors, journalists, researchers, mathematicians, who are the people you would apply EEAT to. So that's a huge signal. Number one, it's looking for people. Number two, it's looking for people who write, are journalists, are researchers, are mathematicians. And then you kind of think, well, if it's doing that, why is it doing that? Why is it focusing on people? Because a publisher will be behind the same website. They can use the website as a proxy to understand the publisher. But the author is going to be writing for multiple websites. How on earth do they understand that I've written on Search Engine Land, I've written on Forbes, I've written on my own website, I've written on my company website? It needs to understand me as I move around the web as a human being. So it has to focus on people if it's to get any kind of credibility measurement for EEAT. And to finish that off, sorry, I'm going on a bit, but the knowledge graph had that huge update, tripling the number of people in the space of 3 days in July. And the helpful content update in September had a huge increase in knowledge panels. So the helpful content update, as far as we have understood at Calicube, was an integration of the knowledge graph into the search algorithms. And it's the first time we've seen that.
Yeah.
Oh, and the March update, there was another March update, which we called Killer Whale. And then both the knowledge graph and the core algorithm, the helpful update, happened at the same time.
Okay.
So you can see the knowledge graph is now being increasingly integrated into the search results. And if you look at the people also search for, there's a new thing called, I can't remember what it's called, community or something like that, which is basically showing relationships between people. Yep. But Google has to understand the people to understand the relationships. Therefore, the knowledge graph is being increasingly implemented in the search results. Sorry, I'll stop.
No, it's interesting. It's kind of...
I can't stop. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I mean, I was just, we're talking about, when you were talking about the numbers, I was like, I bet you it's counting dead people. So I was glad that you said that, and
yes.
Affirmed my suspicion. But then when I was really kind of thinking on that too, it's just going to keep compounding as people are born too. I mean, granted, it's probably not going to be indexing any info about babies for a while until they become journalists, but it's that number that's going to be insane. That's just crazy. And the first number, I'm thinking, well, yeah, it's got to be at least one bit of content about every website, blog, spammy link online, but I'm sure it's even more than that. And then thinking about all the connections with people and community too. I mean, it's a web right across the internet. And oh well, I guess that's why we call it the World Wide Web.
A web right across the internet. That's the best quote I've heard all day.
Wow, that was really brilliant, Jeff. Where'd you learn that? I don't know. It's like 35 years ago. But anyway, it's pretty crazy.
You mentioned there's a piece of content about everybody somewhere online, which is true. I mean, obviously not for babies. A lot of children as well are kept out of the internet limelight, as it were. But one thing we've seen is my team at Calicube are not from the digital marketing space. They don't have public-facing personas, as it were, like I do. And we've got multiple knowledge panels for them with only 2 social media profiles. So they're in Google's Knowledge Vault, Knowledge Graph, and have a knowledge panel simply through having a couple of social media profiles and being on the Calicube website. And Google trusts the Calicube website, so it believes what we say, and it just adds them. And if you ask ChatGPT or Google Gemini, they understand who these people are because we've educated those machines. And these people have very small digital footprints. And that just indicates to what extent Google and the other machines are learning about you 24/7, whether you like it or not.
So do you, I mean, this is kind of Google specific. I realized that we started off by talking about something that was like massive in terms of its rollout, GPTs and voice activated search and this, that, and the other. And then we've basically gone down the Google rabbit hole because you're talking to me and Jeff. But I have heard of agencies in the past. I've spoken to agencies in the past who actually use the Google Knowledge Panel as a bit of a barometer to assess essentially how effective SEO is being, I guess. I don't want to put words in their mouth, but do you use that as one of your kind of indicators that either your work is being successful or that work needs to be done, that somebody's knowledge panel is underperforming?
Yeah, I mean, the knowledge panel represents understandability, so that's where we start. Our first job with any client is say, if you have a knowledge panel, we're going to make it big, and we're going to make it accurate, and we're going to make it information rich, and we're going to make it trigger every time somebody searches your name. We're going to make it stable. If they don't have a knowledge panel, we'll build you one. Because that knowledge panel represents understanding. If the machine can understand who you are, what you do, and who you serve, then we can start building credibility on top of that. If it doesn't understand, we can't even begin to explain why you're a credible solution.
Yeah.
So we start with understandability. That's the knowledge panel. That's the KPI. And then credibility, we start building that. And the credibility is what are the quality of the results and the accuracy of the results on the search and in the AI for you. So you search your name, is that left rail, the left-hand side of the results, positive, accurate, and convincing? If it is, then we're starting to get credibility. If the knowledge panel has grown and it makes you look like a superstar, yeah, we've got credibility with understanding and we're in a really good place.
You mentioned before that it didn't take a lot for, I mean, putting words in your mouth, but it didn't sound like it took a lot to get some of your team members at CaliCube to be featured in these as well. So am I correct in that at least at this stage, it's not, I don't want to imply that it's easy or imply that, you can just click a couple buttons and do it, but I'm guessing that right now is probably the time to be working on things like this because it's still kind of fresh. It's probably not terribly competitive, and I'm assuming people aren't out there being nefarious, trying to overtake other, brand SERPs and things like that. So
no.
I'm assuming it's safe to say that you recommend getting on this sooner than later.
Yeah, well, yes, exactly. There are multiple things going on there. Number one is it's relatively easier now than it's going to be. And that's hugely important. But as you say, it doesn't mean it's easy. It just means if you're organized, you can do it. And you need to be consistent over a period of time and across your entire digital footprint. And you need to build up your authority as a source of information for Google. And CaliCube, I've been working 9 years on the CaliCube website to make it a reliable, trusted source of information for Google. Google basically believes anything we say. If you do it with your website, it won't work because Google doesn't yet trust you as a knowledge source. So we've become a Wikipedia in our space. So
not a bad place to be.
Easy, but sorry, go ahead.
That's not a bad place to be.
No, and it took 9 years. And for my own website, I'm a super duper mega Wikipedia for my niche, which is me. So for me, myself, Jason Barnard, and my topic, my website is a trusted source. CaliCube is a trusted source for CaliCube, its employees, its partners, and its product, and our topic. So you're looking at building your trustworthiness of a source, and it's not based on links. CaliCube and JasonBarnard.com, CaliCube.com and JasonBarnard.com don't have a huge number of links. If you look us up in Majestic or in Ahrefs, we're going to look like, very small bit players. And yet we're trusted, and yet we can feed the knowledge graph with pretty much whatever we want. So you've got to distinguish between links, building trust. Links are popularity, they're not authority. It's a sign of popularity, and that's a really important thing to bear in mind. Google can't rely on popularity. It has to find a different way to measure authority. And you were saying start now. It's gonna compound. The less well it understands today, the worse it's going to be tomorrow. And if it's misunderstood today, tomorrow it's going to convince itself that it's right, and it's going to be harder to change its mind. Think of it as a child who's learned something, and over multiple years, it's convinced itself that it's right, and then all of a sudden you say, well, actually, that's wrong. Getting the child to understand something new after 5 years is going to be significantly more difficult than correcting it today.
You can relate with some of those challenges.
You have kids?
Yes.
Yes.
Both of us.
Yep. Yeah. Actually, the thing that sprung to my mind was our dog trainer. When we got a puppy, the dog trainer basically said the same thing, which is you can't let the bad habits in the dog start now, because however long a dog has a bad habit, it takes you twice as long to train it out of it. So if you let it jump on the bed for a year, it's going to take you 2 years for it to learn to not jump on the bed.
That's good. I like that. Oh, well, I don't like it, but I don't have a dog, so I don't mind. But it's a really good analogy for me to tell my clients and prospects. If Google's got a bad habit today and it's had that bad habit for a year, you're looking at 2 years to sort it out.
Yeah.
You can use that in your next book, Will. Pete will allow it.
Obviously, there's a royalty involved in it, and you heard it here first.
Yeah, we did. We definitely heard it here first.
Well, I mean, right. I've got two directions in my head that this can go. The first is that you mentioned about the knowledge graph, the knowledge panel, and the Vault, Google Vault. And then how Google needs to essentially understand the human as an entity in all of this, because as you said, you might write for Forbes, Search Engine Land, your own book, wherever I know Jason, you've written in all those places. So the logical side of this would then say, oh well, all you really need is a personal brand website to pull all this together, and that becomes the. But I'm sensing that it's a little more difficult than that.
It's a little bit more difficult, but not significantly more difficult. What is difficult is being less of a messy human and actually organizing and making consistent and clarifying and maintaining over time, which is where we get our clients from, is that we take all of that off their shoulders. Right. So I can explain to you in 3 simple steps what you need to do. You create your own website. You've got the first step. That's your entity home, where Google gets information from you about you, or about you from you. So Google goes there, it says, okay, this is the information about Pete from Pete. You state who you are, what you do, who you serve, why you're credible, and what you offer. Then you link out to all the resources that confirm what you say, first, second, and third party. So websites you own, website or social media platforms that you second party, I would call that, where you semi-control, and third party where you have no control. You link back from those to your website. Google goes backwards and forwards and sees the same information over and over again, like a child that learns by repetition.
Yep.
That is the entire thing. That's all you need to do. And it seems very simple, but the problem is that consistency is very difficult to do. The clarity is very difficult to do. How do you write so the machine understands you in terms of entities, relationships between entities, context clouds, and all that stuff? And how do you maintain it over time as your digital footprint grows and changes, as your market changes, your industry changes, and as the algorithms change? So that is where Kalicube and our clients get value from Kalicube. Is number one, we maintain over time. Number two, we ensure that it's right, the machine understands, we track it all. And more than anything, we take the weight off your shoulders. You don't have to do it yourself. You can sleep well at night, focus on your life, and know that it's being taken care of. And so for everybody else who can't or doesn't want to pay for Kalicube, you go to kalicube.com, kalicube.com/guides, and we give it all away for free.
There we go. We'll put a link in the show notes for that.
You download the guide, do it yourself, knock yourselves out. Everybody can use it. People, corporations, music groups, music albums, clubs, products, films, anything. This works for all of these things, and you can educate Google. And that means there are billions and billions and billions and billions of things that need to be optimized. We're all responsible for our own little corner of the internet, and we're giving it away for free because we can't serve everybody. What we can do is serve the people who see this as fundamentally important, want it done properly, want the weight taken off their shoulders, and want to be absolutely sure they're getting it right. And for us, that means CEOs and founders of largest corporations who understand that their personal brand is a business asset, the driver of their career and their legacy.
So that was
good, wasn't it?
That was excellent. That was excellent.
I got from the start to the end without pausing. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I can guarantee that's the second thing that anybody that's listened this far in the podcast will type into Google, because the first thing they'll be typing in is their own name to see if they've got their own knowledge panel. So that was the
first.
Let me
check.
Yeah, I've already done mine. That was the first place that I wanted to sort of go, and thank you for being so succinct with it. The second place that my brain was going was that it is really encouraging the fact that Google will you can, as a personal level or a small business level, you can have an influence on these kind of things. And now that you've mentioned your guides and stuff, of course, there's more practical advice as to how to do that.
Yeah,
but considering a lot of our audience are an agency owner, and they're not going to be an expert in this as you are, but what are the kind of the initial building blocks, the things that they might want to consider if they're working with a client on a website, You know, we know that when client sites come to us, they might not have done SEO for a long time, but actually, you know what, if the business owner has just been taking questions from his clients and writing blogs, no matter how good or bad those blogs may be, the fact that it's an active website, it's been moving, it hasn't just sat statically, that all helps us when we then start putting an SEO strategy in place. So kind of, what are, from an entity point of view, what are those kind of building blocks that web designers, web builders might want to be considering talking to their clients to start, like, the first, I was going to say footsteps, but it's not even that. It's like the first few inches of this kind of massive journey.
Well, I mean, the design doesn't matter. It matters to humans. I mean, Google does have aesthetic taste, which is an interesting idea. I talked to Minaz Merchant, who's the head of video and image at Bing.
Yeah.
And he does the algorithms for video and image. And he was delighted to tell me, we have aesthetic taste. We've built it into the machine. And Google shows that as well. So these machines do have aesthetic taste. They don't just show any old images. They will actually make an aesthetic choice of the images. So I just said design doesn't matter. Potentially it does a tiny bit, but let's not worry about that. The key to what's going on now is you need to position yourself at the center of your cohort, the center of your industry. You need to be the perfect representation of your industry and be right in the middle. Because if you look at Google Analytics, Google Ads, they work on cohorts. They group things together, people or companies together, and say, okay, this is a group that makes sense as a group. And if one of them any change in circumstances for a member of this group is likely to have XYZ effect, because this group acts generally in the same way or has the same manner of acting. So Google is working in cohorts. And you can see that in the knowledge graph, because they've got a section of the knowledge graph which is completely given over to cohorts. And we have no insight into that at all. So they're machine-generated cohorts, which are not cohorts we would necessarily understand. So it's grouping things. And you need to stand right in the middle. And the way you stand right in the middle is by walking the walk every step of the way, the best possible way for your audience. So you're standing where they're looking, demonstrating your credibility to them, inviting them down the funnel to serve them. And Google can clearly see that that's what you're doing. They see who your audience is and how you're serving them. And it's really great holistic digital marketing package for Google. Branding, marketing package for Google. That's what we do at Calicube as well.
Cool.
Isn't that cool?
There you go. There you go.
If you look at it, I mean, kind of what I've done is come from an SEO world, the very geeky world. So I can talk to you about knowledge graphs and SEO. Since 1998, I started with, the same color text on the background, and you were away, and it was great. And I've moved away from SEO just in the sense that I see SEO as serving digital marketing. It's packaging of something you should already be doing for your audience anyway. And it's packaging for the machine so they can understand, digest it, and replicate it, because that's what they're trying to do, replicate human behavior. And focusing just on your website is a mistake, which is what a lot of SEOs do. You need to explain to Google that Facebook page, that Twitter page, that article, that YouTube channel, that's me. And all of that counts towards how you understand me and how you see my credibility, and gives you opportunities to deliver me to your audience. Understand me, believe I'm credible, deliver me to your audience, and it can be on-site, off-site, and you need to join all those dots. So a lot of the information and the stuff is going to be there because the company's probably doing it anyway, or the person is doing it anyway. You just need to package it for Google, join the dots, and if Google understands, the AI will understand, ChatGPT will understand.
And it's that simple. There we go.
It is that well. And that's the thing, I've really got to be careful, as Jeff pointed out, I can't say it's incredibly simple. But the thing is, theoretically it is, but when you start doing it, you realize there's so many moving parts that it's difficult to keep hold of.
Well, the concepts are simple, but it's hard to put it in place and to keep up on it. And you mentioned multiple times, consistency is the key. And
that's what we're
sure I'm not
at
speaking. I'm sure I'm speaking for a lot of people listening, and that being consistent in anything you do is a huge challenge in life. So, you can yeah, you can put in, the steps. I mean, every January, right? That's what we all do. We make all these new resolutions, and we're consistent for about a week or two. So, and it's the same thing. We've seen, we've seen the customers go, okay, we're going to go off and do things on our own for a bit, and that lasts about a month, and they haven't posted anything for a long time. And it's so easy to miss one deadline or one goal, and then they all fall behind after that.
Yeah. And what we've done at Calicube is I actually built a Mad Machine 2015 when Google were talking about strings to things. And I thought, oh, they can actually do this. And in fact, they couldn't. And they've only just been able to do it a couple of years ago, a year and a half ago. So they were saying it, and I thought, oh, they can do it. So I built this machine based on the idea that Google could actually understand things and were implementing it. Turns out it took them 8 years to catch up with me. And I was just naive because I believed what they were saying. But lucky for me, I've got the machine, and it does multiple things. It sees to what extent you've joined the dots together correctly for the machine. It tracks how the machine's understanding, and it tracks your consistency. So if you're inconsistent, we're going to tell you.
Yeah.
So you don't even need to worry about it. You just sit back and wait for my team to send you a message saying, oh, dear, you've messed up there, haven't you?
We're watching you.
That's the service. As you say, it's very simple. Theoretically, the concept is simple. It took me 10 years to get it this simple. And I think when something is this simple and this obvious, when I tell it to you, you can be pretty sure it's true and it makes sense and it's going to be universally applicable. It's a universal strategy that's timeless. And the simplicity is what makes me confident that I'm not going to get stuck in a few years' time.
Yeah.
But the simplicity is also brilliant because I can explain it in a guide. You download the guide, you say, okay, I'll follow the steps. Remaining consistent and keeping a track of all that is an impossible task, unless you've got the machine, which we do.
Yeah. That's
cool. Oh, sorry, we were talking about something earlier on, is schema markup. I'm sure everybody's got schema markup installed on their WordPress website. Schema markup is explicit semantics. It explains to Google and other machines what's in a page in its native language. Implicit semantics is the page itself and all the content around the web that supports what's on that page. And a guy called Jano van Driel, who's a super expert in schema markup, loves to talk about what we're doing at Calicube, which is implicit semantics. The machine should be able to understand without the schema markup. The schema markup simply repeats to it what it's already understood in the language that was invented for it and reassures it that its understanding was correct. So the implicit semantics is the key, not the schema markup.
Yeah, we've had this conversation recently around schema where you can tell it. Same thing with meta descriptions. You can tell Google what you want it to say, what you think it should say, but it's still up to Google. It's still going to make that decision, and they will determine. And that's a great example of saying that in the real world, because we've had many people go, oh, I typed this and it's not coming up. Well, it's going to take some time, and it may not ever show up because it's just a suggestion.
Yeah, and with exactly 100%. And the schema markup is similar. It's saying, well, this is what we say, and Google's going to go and check. It doesn't just believe you. And if it doesn't say that everywhere on the web, the implicit semantics, it won't repeat stupidly what you've just said. So the key is that consistency. And the reason I was talking about that before is we've used Yoast, we've used WordLift, I've also used Schema App, and I just built a plugin for WordPress. Because none of them do what my plugin does, which is join the dots and make sure it's consistent across every single platform we own. And since we installed it, I wrote it 4 weeks ago. I'd love to say I was a genius developer, but I'm not. I just asked Gemini to write it for me. And it took me, I don't know, about a day. And it's a pretty good plugin. And what it does is generate all the schema markup for all the pages and for the entities, joins all the dots together. And because we control it from our platform, we're absolutely certain the consistency is across the board. And with Yoast is a brilliant plugin, and Jono Alderson, who wrote the schema markup for it, is a genius. But they can't control the consistency of people who install it. And so what I've done is just built a plugin that we use just for our clients to say, well, we're going to control it and ensure we're going to guarantee that it's consistent across the board, because that is fundamental, and we understand that that's what's going to make the machine basically dance to our tune.
That's impressive.
It's cool. I love doing it as well. I'm a geek at heart, and I've explained it to you, but nobody else cares. They just install the plugin and let it get on with it. But
I can't explain how excited I am to play with it. I go, "Ooh, this sounds fun."
Well, I was surprised that that it didn't take me longer. And I think that the thing is, people are saying, "Oh, with Gemini and ChatGPT, you can write code," and I realized you can, but they mess up all the time. And if you don't actually know what you're doing, it's going to be a terrible mess. So I'm lucky I'd learned to code before. I'm not the best coder, but with Gemini, ChatGPT, I can do a very, very, very decent job of a WordPress plugin in a couple of days.
It's pretty amazing.
It is. It's absolutely amazing. I was actually using it to do some code for me the other day. My lead dev. So my background was in development as well, but I haven't done that for regularly for at least 6 or 7 years, and I'm fortunate enough. I've got a team of people that do that for me. And my lead developer's on holiday next week, and sure enough, the week he's trying to clear his plates and whatever, the world's gone absolutely nuts, and there's requests coming in from websites that we haven't touched in months, and if not longer. So I needed to roll my sleeves up and get into some of this stuff, and actually being able to take a chunk of code out of a functions file, chuck it into ChatGPT, and say, right, this is the code we have. This is what the amend is, or this is how we need it changing. Go do, and then stick it on a staging site and make sure it was all right. And you were dead right. It had this thing where it was, it kept on giving me a 0. It was putting a blank array at the end of everything, and it was echoing out all of the functions. So they got to the very end, and it returned it, and it was just screwing it up. And so I managed to teach ChatGPT something when I went and fixed its code, which was quite nice. For an old dog trying to get back into this game very quickly, just to keep the wheels moving a little bit. But yeah, that was a bit of fun anyway.
I found it a really, really interesting experience and rewarding experience. And it makes me now realize that I built the whole Calicube system. It's got 2 billion data points, which we've collected over the last 9 years. There's a whole interface, the whole thing's connected together. It's all in my head. And my big problem was how to represent it on the front end, because I'm a rubber. If I'm rubbish at one thing, it's front end development. But luckily for me, Gemini and ChatGPT are really good at it. So it's just solved my biggest problem.
There you go. So if you're listening and you want to give Jason's website, say, a once-over, just contact him and say that you can do a better design job than ChatGPT. The job's yours.
Yep, definitely.
Fantastic. Well, Jason, I really appreciate your time spending the time with us today. Jeff, before I'd be really cool if this platform that we're recording in had an easy way of some of us conversing to say, look, I've got another question to ask, or don't forget this, but we haven't been using it like that. So Jeff, have you got anything else that you wanted to raise before we kind of wrap things up? Or
I have no further questions, but I don't think we really got a chance to talk about Jason's book and make sure that everybody knows that if you would like to learn much more about this, the fundamentals of brand SERPs for business. Tell us anything more, Jason? It's available on Amazon. We can put the links in the show notes here.
Well, I wrote it 2.5 years ago, and somebody asked me the other day, with ChatGPT, has anything changed? Have you had to rewrite the book? And the wonderful answer is no.
Nice.
It still works. And was I lucky or am I smart? Everything we do worked out. ChatGPT worked out of the box. We didn't have to do anything in addition. So with the Calicube process, if Google understands, the AI understands, and you can sleep easy. Or if you're our client, you can sleep easy. Or if you've gone to calicube.com, kalicube.com/guides, download the guide, do it yourself, then you can sleep easy as well, but it's going to be more work for you.
Love it. Well, it's at the time of day right now it's just approaching 6 o'clock here in the UK, which means it's 7 o'clock in France. I'm guessing there's a nice vin rouge waiting for you somewhere, and for the evening.
Yep. Baguette and a bit of cheese that my daughter just brought home. So it's baguette and cheese, a little glass of wine. The evening's kicking in, and I'm very happy to have finished my day with you guys.
Well, no, it's been a pleasure to chat to you, Jason. Thank you very much for your time. As I say, the knowledge that you've obviously got going on behind those glasses of yours is very, very insane. Even the dog wants to know part of it. Thanks again. Last thing then, if people do want to reach out with you, if they do want to connect with you, what's the best places for them to do that?
Well, you use my Google business card, which is search my name, Jason Barnard, JasonBarnard, and you'll find my site at the top, the knowledge panel, my company website. If you want to do business with me, go to the company website. If you want to download a guide, my articles, read up on Forbes, on Search Engine Land, Twitter if you want to tweet me, LinkedIn if you want to hang out on LinkedIn, and then some videos, generally speaking, Search Engine Land, about page for me. I control the whole thing. And the idea of the Google business card, when you search my name, it's up to you to decide how you want to engage with me. And that's the beauty of what we do at Kalicube.
Fantastic. Well, go and do that. I do just want to leave you with one thought, however. You mentioned Twitter, which of course is now called X.
Yeah.
So does that mean that tweets are now kisses?
Oh, I don't like Twitter or X. But I do like kisses, so I'm kind of like now torn. You've just ruined my
Google me and kiss me. No, hang on, that sounds wrong.
No, it does.
That's what we need. We need somebody to buy X from Twitter and just from Elon and just completely turn it around on its head right there.
Jason, you've been an absolute star. I really hope we can keep in touch. And, who knows, we may even feature on an article or a show or whatever. Again, it's been fantastic having you. Thanks for your time. And all the details that Jason's mentioned will be in the show notes in your podcast player of choice. So make sure you go and check him out, check them out, and connect with him, obviously in the place that you feel comfortable, because he owns it all. Thanks again.
Thanks so much. That was brilliant, Pete.
Thanks. We'll see you.
The WP SEO Show is brought to you by SEO Hive, your agency's proactive white label SEO partner. We understand that finding a reliable SEO supplier is key to ensuring you build stable monthly recurring revenue into your digital agency. At SEO Hive, we have a suite of products that will help you sell, scale and deliver your monthly SEO retainers, from our scout reports and one-off technical boosters, to our flagship local SEO and honeypot plans, all of which have clear pricing and monthly deliverables. If you want to explore how SEO Hive can help your agency deliver high-quality and reliable SEO agreements for your clients, you can find more information at seohive.co and schedule a call to discuss the next steps.